I'm Mike. This is
I'm
Glenda. And we are Herons on the Fly. And
so I wanted to talk a little bit about how tight of a community fly fishing can be. And there's a lot of great ways that we can get out and help other people learn how to fly fish or support them in fly fishing, support local fly shops and everything. It's important to keep the industry healthy and everything. And Mike has given back to the community quite a bit, and I've helped in some ways. There's Casting for Recovery, which I love to support, although I've never worked with them in anything. But I love to get women involved with fly fishing.
And there's a lot of women involved in fishing now.
More so than
ever.
And one of the things I did when I lived in Manchester Center up in Vermont, I was on the board of the Chamber of Commerce there. And so I coordinated between the Chamber and the community and Orvis and had a women's weekend where we invited women to come in and spend the weekend, and we taught them how to fly fish. They also got to shoot some skeet, and we went on hikes and did several other different outdoor activities. And the women that came had a wonderful time, and I got thank you notes from them afterwards, and that was a really good experience. And I also helped teach a lot of people how to fly fish through the stores that I got to oversee for Orvis, and actually kind of started the grassroots movement of
101,
Fly Fishing 101 that Orvis offered. I'm sure people at the corporate office, there were a lot of people involved, but I kind of, started the conversation and got it going in some of my stores, and then corporately they picked it up. So it's free classes to teach people how to fly fish. So there's, a lot of things that you can do to give back to the community. And if you check in your local area with fly fishing, there's Ducks Unlimited and Trout Unlimited and all sorts of organizations.
Yeah, that restore rivers and habitat. And one of the greatest examples of that is the ruby habitat on the Ruby River up in Montana, yeah.
Which we have a video about.
Yeah. So, that's pretty special.
And just support your local shops when you go fishing. Go into the local fly shops, the independently owned fly shops, buy some flies, buy some line, buy, a few little things that you need, or,
and they'll answer all your questions.
Yes, and they really are a wealth of information.
Definitely a need. You got it. Fly shops are your greatest resource.
Yes.
I mean, the days of traveling 1,000 miles, jumping off the plane with your rods, running down the river and catching 20 trout in a day because of the pressure on the water anymore. That sort of thing is way gone. So
So Mike was involved with a great organization,
Project Healing Waters. Yeah, I heard about this. I was wanting to do something, and we were in the throes of the war after 9/11, and there was a lot of young soldiers, men and women, coming home from overseas that had blown up by perhaps one of the most insidious weapons that was ever developed, and that's an IED. And they'd be just driving down the road in a Humvee, and they'd set off an old artillery shell or something, and it would blow up their vehicle. And they had head injuries, spinal cord injuries, missing arms and legs. And that was the best of it, because a lot of them never made it out of the explosions. But they were coming home. They'd run through Ramstein and into, what's the hospital in Washington? Anyway, the big military hospital in Washington. And then they would get sent out as they were their conditions were improving. They would be sent out to other VA hospitals around the country that was closer to home, made it easier for their families to see them, and so on. So but I heard about Healing Waters, and so I went to one of their meetings, and this captain and came out, and he explained to us and said, well, if you're going to participate, you need to take a class, and you need to get you need to learn how to deal with these folks, because they've been through an extremely traumatic situation. So you go to the class and you learn that how you treat them, how you talk to them, and if you're military, it helps because the military has a language all their own. So anyway, I did that, and so I was starting out teaching how to tie flies. Well, I went to my first meeting at the VA hospital there in Richmond, and I walked in. We pulled out some materials, and we were going to tie some simple woolly boogers. Now, my class was about 6 guys came down. We had a spinal cord injury, and we had guys that were missing a leg, and we had another guy that had one functional arm and the other arm wasn't functional, and we had a guy that was missing an arm. And so now we're going to teach somebody that's missing a limb to tie flies. Well, I knew that I couldn't ask that of someone under these circumstances unless I could do it. So I practiced and practiced and practiced at home trying to tie flies with one arm until I got it down so I could, teach somebody how to do it. And sure enough, it might take us an hour, it might take us 45 minutes, and normally for somebody that doesn't have the issues, it might only take a couple of minutes. But they were enthusiastic. There were those that some said, how do you expect me to do this? I don't have my arm, and you might have to show them. Okay, I had one guy, I put my hand in my pocket, and I tied a fly one-handed, and he was like, well, damn. And I was like, you can do it. There's nothing you can't do. You served your country with distinction, and here you are, and come on, let's do this. And the sense of accomplishment that they feel, it was really something. Now, we would fast forward when the weather got better. We took them outside and we taught them how to cast. And Temple Fork Outfitters donated some gear and whatnot, and some of us had gear that we brought, and we taught them how to cast. And then, of course, the next thing is you've tied the bugs, you learned how to cast. Now we need to go fishing. And we all have a good friend by the name of Doug Deere that has a beautiful piece of property that is accessible for vets that are disabled. And we wound up going up there and taking a bunch of guys up there and actually got them in the water, whether we rolled them out in a wheelchair or whether they walked out with us and stood with us and we stood behind them and caught fish and had one of those days. But there was a lot of days that there's stories that I won't get into because they're personal and they're medical stories, and I'm certainly not going to get into them at this point. But there was times where I had to pull over on the way home because it was very difficult to be hard on them, to show them that they could still be whoever they were and still do what they could do, that they weren't any less of a man or a woman because they had a disability, and to make them understand that, and then putting them in the water with a fly rod, it truly is healing water. The look on their face, the way they saw themselves changed almost instantly. And I can't emphasize enough how important that if you've been fly fishing for a long time and you have the opportunity to do something, whether it's like working with cancer patients or veterans or children or that they're missing a parent or whatever it is, if you find those opportunities, or if you want to give back, search these opportunities out. And and fly fishing, although it is a solo pursuit for the most part, it's certainly, when it comes to doing something for your community or whatever, it certainly is not. And so I encourage you to reach out and do that, because it's been without a doubt one of the most rewarding things I've ever done since I started fly fishing, back in 1969, 1970. So just something to think about.
Yep. There's always a way that you can help support, the fly fishing community.
Yeah,
So,
it's a really rewarding experience, more so than they say the tug is the drug. Imagine that when you don't think you're ever going to fish again because you're missing a limb, and then all of a sudden you can,
yeah.
and because it tells you more about yourself than you can ever imagine when you face an adversity and there's people there to support you and whatnot. It's an important thing. It truly is. If you like this story and didn't get too choked up, we're going to try not to get too serious, but it's a subject we needed to mention. I'm Mike. This is Glenda. If you enjoyed us, like, share, and subscribe. We are
Herons on the Fly.
Herons on the Fly. We'll see you next time.